This Christmas, brother.
The 9th.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, karibuni sana. We are trying to see where the weekend has gone to. George, can you see where the weekend went?
I really can't. I think you need to wear our glasses to be able to see where the weekend went to, because it's just the 9th of December. It feels like we were just in studio the other day. In fact, like 2 hours ago.
2 hours ago.
After small meetings here and there.
I'm telling you.
And other events.
Anyway, karibuni sana. This is Morning Cafe, hotter than your coffee. I'm usually standing in Ringita. George, how many days do I think it reached a point where we're just now cruising to?
We're just cruising
to Christmas now.
I think 19 days.
19? Give it. Is it 19 days?
Or 20?
Let's go with 19.
19. You know, some of us really want us to get there so fast.
I'm telling you, I'm usually Stanley Ringita.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Cafe, hotter than your coffee. I am George Maringa, delighted that you've joined us this morning and you've chosen TV47 to brighten your morning. It is exactly 6 a.m. in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Welcome, where we bring you comprehensive coverage of what is happening and what to expect during the day on this specific Monday, the 9th of December 2024.
Oh, yes. And as you say, a lot is going to be happening. A lot has happened over the weekend. And this gentleman who come with knowledge, going to be telling us what has been happening and what to expect.
Yes, everyone is down at the coast, and when I say everyone, they know, Kenyans will know what we saw over the weekend in terms of some very interesting races. But of course, the show must continue, because this morning we're delighted to have very not new faces to the screens. Philip Kisia, a leadership and governance expert; Samuel Pogisio, former majority leader of the Kenyan Senate and former ICT minister, as well as Kipruto Arap Kirwa, former agriculture cabinet minister.
Oh, yes.
That will be on State of the Nation this morning.
Later on the weekly dose of Matters Sports, George, in the Kenyan football scene, there's a new sheriff. His name is Hussein Mohammed. He's going to be deputized by former international player McDonald Mariga. And in studio, going to be having Innocent Motiso. He's a former Harambee Stars player, as well as Gentrix Masi. He's an assistant coach at Kibra United. They're going to be joined by Fred Arocho and Shutterboy, just to understand the state of Kenyan football. Where we at? Where do we need to go next?
Okay.
That is how things are going to be looking like. And as you can see in most dailies, there's a mention of how and what needs to be done in that sector. And then later on, we're going to be talking about embracing artificial intelligence in businesses and really focusing on this small and medium enterprises and how you can do that as well. Eunice Muthoni Kimani, Director Entrepreneurship Programs, Digital Regenesis Kenya. Stick around for that. Matters
AI in business. To the headlines, there are some very interesting headlines this morning, and what a way to start off the week for Kenyans.
Yes.
Because the People Daily has decided to name and shame the least performing members of parliament. They begin with someone who made headlines actually over the weekend by saying that Kenyans on social media do not know what they are doing. Oscar Sudi, Member of Parliament for Kapseret; Irene Kasalu for Kitui; Charles Gimose Hamisi; Paul Abur Rongo; George Aladwa Makadara; Alfred Mutai, Kuresai North; Irene Njoki Bahati; Joseph Tonui, Kuresai South; Patrick Osero Borabu; and Bara Hussein Tarbaj. Did you know there is Tarbaj?
I didn't know, but I've seen his face.
Are you sure?
Yes, I've seen that face, and this same faces, ladies and gentlemen, from the People Daily. Go to the Star.
The Star.
Members of Parliament yet to say a word in Parliament in 2024.
In fact, the Star continues to give us more faces. We shall be telling you who they are but short while.
I mean, to say even a single word, I mean, they've definitely even voted in some of these bills. And just saying, there isn't one during the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. They stood up and said a word. I don't know the Star's headline on that. But Daily Nation, they go with Matters Education.
Yes, on
with,
Matters CBC
yes.
and Grade 9 crisis, because they say there is a Grade 9 crisis. We want to stand by so that we tell you what the crisis is all about, even as you're at home preparing to go to work. If you're already in the office, we'll be able to tell you why, as a parent, as a guardian, actually even as a student, there is a crisis in grade 9 as reported by the Daily Nation.
On the Standard, Raila's path to Addis paved with intrigues.
Yes, dynamics, political dynamics. Raila Odinga, who has also attempted to be president a couple of times, several times, is now seeking the AUC chairmanship seat. And the East African region, of course, is, it's a turn for the East African community. We'll be able to see what that entails. Taifa leo wasemaje, Stanley?
Wasema Gachagua arusha mawe. Na kwa pale ameshikilia jikaratasi. Turudi kuambia ni mawe yepi ambayo yanarushwa.
Which stones are being thrown. And banks widen profit margin, ignore CBK rate cut signals. Now, the Central Bank of Kenya CBK Governor Kamau Thuge had issued the CBK base lending rates, but banks seem to be going their own way, because you can be sure interest rates can even go up to 28%.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen that on someone's offer letter for a facility. So, CBK, I think, revised it to 13 point something. We'll be getting to the details of that very shortly.
Well, across the regions, this is the front page of the East African.
Yes. And
talks about matters east, west, US versus China. Now, they're asking a very, very important question. Who's falling home? Critics say cooperation isn't rooted in win-win outcomes, but rather serves as a vehicle for advancing superpowers' interests.
And Kenyans,
Yes.
and East Africans in general should notice that in this picture, there is the superpower, of course, the US, but then there is Joao Goncalves of
Lorenco.
Yeah, Lorenco. Let's go with that one, of Angola. Tshisekedi, just our neighbor on the other side of Uganda, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Hakainde Hichilema
of Zambia.
Yeah, Zambia. And then Tanzania's VP, Philip Mpango.
Yes.
Why in Angola? This speaks volumes in terms of the penetration and further advancement of the US into Africa, even at a moment that, the continent keeps looking several ways.
Yes.
And some have argued it's not about going east or west.
There's a certain story that is tucked all the way to the bottom scroll of the East African, and it has to do with Kenyans. Kenyan police in Haiti exit stage over pay as they frustrated officers submit letters of resignation from the security mission. And this is comes, I think, a few months after President William Ruto said that they're going to be making sure that this is sorted out. So the mandate ends next year at a time like this. Wait to see how that is going to look like.
Yeah, and there have been questions because Kenya wants it converted into a UN peacekeeping mission,
well, and then the entry of the new president of US.
Yes.
What does that mean as well?
Donald Trump. Anywho, the Daily Monitor is asking new enemies of the state, because from pages 18 to 30,
this is Uganda, in case you're seeing this paper for the first time.
Just in case. Online platforms have become hugely popular tools of social justice, activism and raising voices for young Ugandans of 18 to 30 years. Actually, it's not pages 18 to 30. It's the age 18 to 30. That you can find on pages 4 to 5. Anyway, basically the issue is social media. Here we call them keyboard warriors.
Yes.
In Uganda, they're being called keyboard rebels. Do you want to say it to their accent?
Same script?
Different cast.
And we're definitely seeing this in Kenya.
Yes.
As people tweeting in their bedsitters and telling the government, you're doing very wrong.
We would have the Ugandan government know that, our president has expressed frustrations over this, so perhaps he also needs to...
Or probably the Mapepos have got it into Uganda.
Yeah. Let's wait to see if Tanzania will complain of the same. Anyway, the Citizen, what does it say, Stanley?
What Samia aims at in latest cabinet reshuffle. This happened, there was another whole cabinet reshuffle a few months ago. It has also happened. Analysts and commentators weigh in after President Samia Suluhu Hassan transferred 6 ministers and reconstituted 2 ministries in her second cabinet reshuffle in 5 months.
5 months.
Yes, and they've listed these ministers who have been reshuffled. Well, are these things that we need to be seeing in Kenya?
Maybe, you never know. And then Mwananchi wanasema Mbowe, Tundu Lissu waipasua Chadema, chama cha demokrasia. Wanachama viongozi wagawanyika kambi tofauti huku hofu ya mpasuko ikiongezeka zaidi. Askofu Bagonza akizungumzia mvutano akitoa angalizo. Wachambuzi wa siasa wadau wataka Lissu Mbowe washindane kwa hoja.
Ni baadhi ya vidokezo. Kenya, Uganda na Tanzania. Turejea nchini
Kenya na vile kuna taarifa siri uhuru wa Tanganyika. Wakati wanaelekea kuadhimisha miaka 63 ya uhuru. Now, by the way, we have just about 3 days to Kenya's Independence Day celebrations.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And it's a great turning point for the African continent. Where do we go next, Stanley?
We take a look at the weather. Being a Monday, you definitely want to know how your week is going to be starting. Do you need an umbrella or do you need some sunscreen?
Last week, on Friday, we told them it was safe to go for the small meetings without the umbrellas, and the weather was looking good. So let's see how it's shaping. Today, Monday, there are highs of 26 and lows of 16 in, which county is this? This is Nairobi, actually. Yes. Let's see if there is any chance of precipitation, 2.3 millimeters. And it's looking a bit cloudy, but then towards... there will be a chance of rain from in the afternoon. You could be expecting showers all the way to early evening. And then seems the wet days this week in Nairobi will be Wednesday and Thursday.
Yes.
With actually from morning. This is Thursday and Wednesday also from morning all the way to partly evening. So that's how the situation is looking like in Kenya's capital, Nairobi.
Let's take a look at the coastal city of Mombasa and just the whole county. The thing in Mombasa today is quite rainy. As of the highest temperatures you're going to be getting today is 29, but generally it's going to be a very wet day. Thunderstorms from the morning all the way to around 10 a.m. And then after that, the rain continues, subsidizing around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. there. So definitely a very rainy day in Mombasa.
It's actually even raining as it looks.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, raining. It's actually...
To County 001, yes, tell us, is it actually raining or is Google telling us that it's raining?
Let's go to Nandi.
Yes.
And it looks to be a similar situation in terms of not very hot weather, 26 highs of 26 and lows of 12. Do we have any chances of precipitation? Zero. None, but it's a bit low, so you might want to maybe carry a jacket here and there for baridi purposes. And it looks it's that way all the way to next week even. Not hot, not very cold. It's a bit warm. Let's go to the lakeside.
Oh, yes.
To the UK. United Kisumu.
United Kisumu. It's a very big day for Kisumu people.
Yes.
This particular week, we're going to be having Kofi Olomide, and I'll be telling you all about that in a few. But as you see, all the way, starting from today, getting into, I think one particular day that is going to be raining is Thursday.
Even they're going to have some showers.
Just
it's not actually all day.
Some very cloudy then into the evening. But Saturday, as you can see here, on the 14th of this month, it's going to be cloudy in the afternoon, but definitely make sure that Mzuka Fest is going to be making, as much as it might be cloudy, Mzuka Fest is going to be making sure that your weather is totally hot. Kofi Olomide is going to be there. Zaiko Langa Langa. And get this, you as an important person, you can pay this with 1,000 Kenya shillings. Very important person, 4,000 Kenya shillings. And very important person, 10,000 Kenya shillings. Prince Inda is also going to be there. So we've taken a look at the weather for you. It's going to be perfect for that particular day. Well, yes. And then now for today as well.
It's highs of 29, lows of 18, not very cold. You might want to be able to, dress up lightly.
Yes.
But it also depends on how the situation looks like. From 8 actually, it's going to be start getting warmer all the way to the evening, early evening of about 9 p.m. That is how the weather is looking like.
A quick highlight of pardon me, what to expect. Today is International Anti-Corruption Day. And the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is going to be holding some forums, particularly focusing on the youth for Anti-Corruption Day today. So stick around for that. That, among other headlines in our news bulletins, subsequent news bulletins. Right now, though, let's take a deep dive on the dailies and tell you what you need to know this morning. Least performing members of parliament, and their faces are there. So ladies and gentlemen, on the 9th of August 2022, you woke up very, very early in the morning and you said, you know what, I'm going to vote for my favorite and preferred member of parliament. 2 years later, this member of parliament might just have not, probably might have spoken a word or two in parliament, but might not have given the kind of impact that you were looking for when you voted for him or her. On the front page of People Daily, they have plastered these faces, so you can take a look at them and keenly analyze them. And then, if you have their phone number maybe, or if you meet them along the market and ask them, why are you not saying anything in parliament? So yes, George had read out the names, but then you can also just take a look at them and see who these people are.
Top on that list, Oscar Sudi, Member of Parliament for Kapseret constituency, Irene Kasalu Kitui, Charles Gimose Hamisi, Paul Abor Rongo, George Aladwa, Makadara. Actually, our director seems to have issues as Member of Parliament. Did you know who your director, your MP is? Bwana Nick. Alfred Mutai, Kuresoi North, Irene Njoki, Bahati, Joseph Tonui, Kuresoi South. Kuresoi seems to be really...
Oh yes, North and South, by the way.
Both North and South.
That's very worrying.
Yeah, Joseph Tonui, Kuresoi South, Patrick Osero Borabu, Bare Hussein, Tarbaji. Okay, so one of the things also that is very interesting with these surveys, whereas they may not be speaking in parliament, you might find these are the most loved perhaps on the ground.
Well,
you know, it usually depends. The scales can weigh differently on how you look at it. In terms of activity, contribution in parliament, representation, I think, but also it is also a constitutional duty to be able to represent, so that's why they could be failing in terms of representation. But also, does being in silent in, in parliament mean that they're not getting development? We will wait and see. And of course, we'll be asking our guests, what does it mean to actually participate in parliament? So
this particular, now in case you're wondering who actually said these are the least performing, this is according to a report by the 2024 Parliamentary Scorecard released by the Mzalendo Trust. It reveals that 20 MPs who did not utter a word on the floor of the House and 3 senators who least participated in the House. That story is also on the front page of the Star, where they say MPs yet to say a word in Parliament in 2024. Well, they have some of this. I'm trying to see any new. Yes, there's
Sabatia.
There's also Mohamed Machele of Vita. Also, we've not seen Stephen Oshira of Laikipia West.
Cherengan.
Patrick Simeyu. So you can also take a look at these areas as well on the map of Kenya. Where do they come from?
Also, Subukia seems to be on the receiving end. There's also big escape for governors and PSs. Escort judgment clips MPs' oversight powers. You can find more details on page 2 of the Star. Because Star people, smart people, read
the Star.
The Star.
So what the Star has done, still on that whole bit of members of parliament, now on page 4 and 5, it gives you as much as those who haven't uttered a word, there are those now who are quite active there. That is on the front page of the Star. We take a look at Daily Nation.
Daily Nation said
education.
Yes, it talks about the education matters, where there is a concern on grade 9 crisis. With less than a month to go, many schools are ill-prepared to admit grade 9 learners on January 6th, while construction of classrooms to accommodate the pioneer learners under the competency-based curriculum is ongoing in some schools. The situation remains dire in many institutions.
Yes.
Pages 4 and 5 is where you will be able to find that detailed report on the Daily Nation on matters, the ill preparation, as they call it, of the grade 9.
All right.
And of course, this has been a, mfumo wa elimu, an education system that many have argued we were not very prepared as a country in terms of facilities, infrastructure in schools. What else do we...
George, how much, what can you do with 15,000 cash shillings if I give it to you?
15,000?
Yes.
First of all, I'll keep it to first, then decide what I want to do.
So apparently in Mulot, that is in somewhere in Bomet and Narok counties, there are people who are paying 15,000 cash shillings to do what? To pay so that they can be trained on how to do mobile fraud. That involves SIM swapping and all that. Yes, so they say fraud involves scammers stealing subscribers' registration details to access victims' mobile wallets, to steal cash and take loans.
This is where we say where. 1,000 words per minute. Page 8 says of the Daily Nation why Kindiki is charting his own political path, and his predecessor Gachagua was visible at almost all presidential functions, but according to the Daily Nation, it says Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has been missing at several public events attended by President William Ruto. Unlike his predecessor, Rigathi Gachagua was visible at almost all presidential functions, and Professor Kindiki appears to have chosen a different path of holding parallel events.
And he has only accompanied the president to only one public event.
One public event.
I think on the 12th might be the second. Yes.
Because you will hardly see them sharing a podium.
Well, that is on the back page is Matters Sports. I'll stick around for 8 a.m. for Monday Blitz. We'll be right here. Frederick as well as Shutterboy will be right here to tell you what it means. They say how Hussein beat the odds to clinch top football seat. From Daily Nation, we take a look at the Standard.
The Standard. Raila's path to Addis paved with intrigues. Raila Odinga, whose bid to become Kenya's president failed, may soon have a better alternative and finally bestride the whole of Africa. But there is a mountain to climb. Find out more details of that mountain on pages 6 and 7. And it's, President William Ruto, during the launch of his campaign, had said, our East African region rightly considers this moment to be its turn to offer leadership on the basis of the principle of inter-regional rotation.
Yes, but then now, something that you're telling us, was it on Friday?
Yes.
About the diaspora bond.
Diaspora bond.
Yes, it is now here on page 10. And then now on page 11, there might just be something related to our economy as well. So you could also tell us about this. How important is this diaspora bond? Yes,
diaspora bond. And, there was that argument that they could tap, Kenyans in the diaspora remit about 250 billion per year. And it would be fantastic to see. But when you speak to Kenyans in the diaspora, would they be willing? But also, in matters, some explosive and, interesting conversations still on the front page of the Standard.
Yes.
There is on matters the book Serialization Part 2, Taking the Plunge by Martha Karua. How I took on ex-civil service boss and won. If Geoffrey Karevi, former head of civil service in Kenyatta and Moi government, was a big tree, Martha Karua was the small axe that fell him. A towering figure, not just in Kirinyaga, but also nationally. Karevi had, upon retiring from the civil service, joined politics, was elected MP Geshogu in 1988 and appointed Assistant Minister for Tourism.
Have you read the book?
Yes, I have read the book. You need to read it.
I need to borrow it. How many pages is it?
It is, I won't describe but it is, compact enough for you to be able. She opens up on so many things, including family, and the many descriptions that she says have baffled her. But the most interesting one was when she says when people describe her as the only man in Kibaki's government.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is now your December plans. Yes. Just chilling somewhere in Shanks and flipping through the pages of Against the Tide. In other interesting stories, there's one really that has been tucked away in most pages, and it was something that was happening over the weekend. It is on page 22 of the world pages. They say Damascus celebrates as Assad toppled. Let's just flip there to the world pages and take a look at that for you. Yes. They say gunmen spread out through the streets, shooting into the air and chanting, "Syria is ours, not the Assad families." Journalists, civil servants and members of parliament changed their social media profile pictures, replacing them with the opposition flag. So yes, some very interesting things are happening all the way there, and also in Damascus.
As you end up, I know we are winding up on this one, but on page 2, there is the issue of immunity, where the Gates Foundation is stoking controversy. Remember, they were given some privileges, and critics say the foundation, which was granted immunity status by Kenya, could use the privilege to avoid scrutiny of its activities. That is a whole splash on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. So let's look at the next Taifa Leo. There's also Business Daily.
Yes, we have the physical there.
Yeah, we've got the physical copy right here. Banks widen profit margin, ignore CBK rate cut signals, and average lending rate CBR difference hits the 1-month high. Regulator warns costly loans will hurt the economy. And the commercial banks have widened their profit margins from lending by keeping their interest rates high, despite the CBK nudging them to significantly reduce the cost of loans. By the way, if anyone has taken a loan, could you care to tell us what was your interest rate? How much were you offered as interest? I know someone was offered up to 28%. That speaks a lot. That speaks volumes in terms of the whole issue of lending.
Yes.
And eyes on IRA, that is the police, the watchdog.
The Insurance Regulatory Authority.
Yes, yes. S23 Insurance breach minimum capital position. It's just a lot that is happening on matters, finances, and everything else. That is it.
We'll take a look at the caricatures now and see what the cartoons are saying. The caricatures are telling us this morning that a number of them, I think 2 of them, that have symbolism on matters football. This is quite interesting to give football prominence. The same, they have this gentleman who has this jersey written "Delegates." He's holding a football donated by FIFA, and he's saying "Samahani Mwenda." It's a new start with Hussein Mariga, and that bin is this gentleman, now the outgoing Football Kenya Federation President.
Nick Mwendwa.
Nick Mwendwa, yes. That's the Standard. Gamzo's take on the Star.
On the Star, more love, less criticism, please. This seems to be a yellow tie, so you can see who that one is, and of course the bald head.
Yes.
And this, these are of course religious leaders. One side saying more love, less criticism, please. And of course, what is again the role of the church and the clergy in all this. They've taken very, very interesting symbolism and,
and all this
similarity.
I think for this particular church leader who's donning the purple attire, you can really, really tell who that is.
Who that is. FKF starter kit. I think this cleaning up.
Yes.
There is a lot to be done. Oh, there's even a whole washing machine.
It is. That really goes to show how much is needed in the Football Kenya Federation and in the football scene in the country. Yeah. Then finally, matters politics.
The Mountains' new ship is a nightmare. Ruto's Mount Kenya allies seem to be informing him, because someone is using binoculars as he looks upon the mountain's new shape, is a nightmare. It will be interesting to see how the politics in the near future shape the Mount Kenya region, and how also the Mount Kenya region will shape the politics of this country moving forward.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, what do you expect for the
State of the Nation?
Yes.
Our guests are already here in studio. We have none other than Samuel Pogisio, the former ICT minister and also former majority leader of the Kenyan Senate. We've also got Philip Kisia and Kipruto Arab Kira. These gentlemen are already here in studio. Quickly, let's take you through the traffic, how it's looking like. Of course, the bottlenecks of just after Muthaiga have started. After KCA coming all the way to Muthaiga, that bottleneck is looking red, but manageable.
Interestingly, from Kiambu Road getting into Muthaiga roundabout, it looks clear.
Yes.
Then it eases off after now getting into CBD. Somewhere else I'd also seen there's a certain bottleneck. Just to zoom out that. Yes, getting into the Central Business District.
Yes.
As well, this is Ladis Road. And getting into the Central Business District, it has already started to kushikana the red marks.
Yes.
Other roads, let's see. Mombasa Road. Mombasa Road should be somewhere here. Mombasa Road, where you might just be getting at the bottom, express is definitely clear. At the bottom, it's imeshikana kushikana. So yes, if you're using Mombasa Road this morning, be very wary of that. It has started all the way. Wow.
Yeah.
All the way.
Mombasa Road is looking very
This
red.
is probably just before you hit, I think, is this South Sea there?
Yeah.
Imara Daima, actually. From Imara Daima all the way
into
the Central Business District. It is bumper to bumper, so be very wary of that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a short break. State of the Nation coming up, and then later on we get into Monday Blitz for a whole hour talking about state of Kenyan football and really unpacking what needs to be done. And then later on, for small businesses and even growing businesses, are you embracing artificial intelligence? Well, if you're just having some hiccups on that, we'll be having an expert analyzing that for you. Weka remote hapo chini, don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Right back.
Yeah.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents. Zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair in the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
It is exactly 19 minutes to the top of the hour. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching The Morning Cafe with me, George Maringa. My guest, as I informed you earlier, on matters State of the Nation, we're delighted this morning to be joined from the left, the Honorable Samuel Poghisio, former Majority Leader in the Kenya Senate and a former ICT Minister. In the middle is Philip Kisia, Leadership and Governance Expert, as well as on the right is Kipruto Arap Kiro, former Agriculture Minister and Agriculture Cabinet Minister. A lot is happening and making headlines, shaping what you've seen over the weekend. And I'll begin by, asking and picking your mind, Mheshimiwa Kipruto, on matters IEBC. We've seen there is a clamor and new urge to reconstitute this. The Deputy President's former and current have taken different opinions. And perhaps let's first maybe even just take a look at the IEBC Reconstitution Intrigues before we come into that discussion right here in studio. Remember, there is that clamor to be able to reconstitute the IEBC. Let's listen in.
The delay to reconstitute the electoral agency less than 3 years before the general election has faced more critique than patience, with Kenyans reading malice of what they now say is a ploy to sabotage the process. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, while speaking in a church service at PCEA Mweki, Kasarani, Nairobi County Sunday, warned that delays could compromise the credibility of the upcoming elections.
Kriegler report walisema the electoral commission must be in place 3 years before the election. Sasa tumebaki mwaka mbili unusu. Hakuna IEBC. And people can read mischief. Kwa nini IEBC hapana weko? So we are calling for the constitution of IEBC.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka chastised the state and in particular President William Ruto for creating the constitutional crisis by failing to reconstitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC.
State capture continues, even of the judiciary. The fact they are not even able to move this process forward. So we are calling them out that this is a William Ruto strategy to make sure that there is no IEBC.
Despite the ongoing legal battle over the issue, a section of Kenyans has criticized the executive and parliament for their silence, which has increased pressure on the government to start hiring new commissioners.
Tuko hatarini sana kama IEBC haitakuwa constituted tukielekea 2027. Na sana kuna watu ambao hana wakilishi wamefariki pale, na sasa hakuna mambo ya kufanya by election kwa haya makao.
Supreme Court Judge Isaac Lenaola fueled the pressure for the Commission's reconstitution by cautioning that the protracted delay might make it more difficult for the Commission to prepare for the elections.
Ikiwa mpaka watu wakubwa sana majaji wa Supreme Court wamesema Kenya hii haiwezi kuendelea kama hakuna IEBC. Na wewe kama rais umepatiwa nafasi ya kuweka IEBC. Weka IEBC kama hakuna kitu unaficha.
Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, however, pleaded with the involved parties who filed the cases in court to withdraw and allow a seamless process to take place.
There are some who are blaming the government. Now, when there's an injunction, the government is not able to do anything. So we request those who filed those cases to go and reach an out-of-court settlement so that the injunction is lifted.
Ombi langu ni kuomba viongozi wote waweze kuunga viongozi wetu wakiongozwa na Mheshimiwa Rais katika ile harakati ya kubuni tume huru la mipaka na uchaguzi ili kufanikisha by-election zetu.
According to the Independent Review Commission, the electoral agency must be in place 3 years before the elections. But since the resignation of 4 IEBC commissioners, the electoral body is yet to be reconstituted. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
Candidates Registration Center.
Thank you, Mike, for that report, which sets the pace for the discussion this morning, and we can see your feedback. Hello, gentlemen. Stephen Nkosira saying on YouTube, following you from Narok County, my favorite morning show. Thank you so much, and we endeavor to make sure that you have the best on Kenya's television. Now, Mheshimiwa Kipruto Arap Kiro,
yes.
Do you think we recognize as a country what the crisis of the lack of the reconstitution of IEBC means? Do you think that is something that has really been internalized and is understood by all quarters in this country?
Well, let us state the following. One, everybody is aware that IEBC should have been in office much earlier than today, because there are some constituencies which have been vacant for the last 1 year or so. And this is something that we are denying the people of those constituencies and wards an opportunity to be represented by their own people. The second issue is that, yes, the gravity of the matter is heavy, but I do not know why the executive is causing this unnecessary delay. I know if they wanted to expedite with the process, they would have reached out to those individuals to ensure that there is out-of-court settlement or expedite the process in a court of law for purposes of ensuring such cases are expedited and disposed with. But the way it is, it seems there is something we do not know. Either they want to delay the process so that they create enough confusion. And you know, rigging takes place when there is a lot of confusion. It's for that reason that Kriegler said in his report, it would be important for this country to obviate the issues that arose in 2007, post-election violence, by ensuring that the electoral body is in place 3 years before. Now, we are under 3 years. It's about 2.5 years before the next general election. And yet, nobody seems to be bothered about the challenges that we are faced with. And finally, you know, there is already unconstitutionality in the process we are going through. We are supposed to have reviewed boundaries of various constituencies within the requirement of the Constitution, that not less than 8 years, but not more than 10 years. But as of now, we've not reviewed those constituencies. And this is another problem, that we are denying people an opportunity to feel fully represented by people they have chosen and they have elected. There are some constituencies which are so big that just one member of parliament will not effectively represent those constituencies. Okay. These are some of the issues that really do arise. But of course, as you know, this regime has selective memory for the things they want to do and the things they don't want to do. So it may be part of the strategy to make sure that there is total confusion as we near the next general election, 2027.
Kisia, what is this strategy? It seemed to be going in the right direction that day at KICC when we saw, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, the president, and other leaders, Kalonzo Musyoka, for that reconstitution, first step. But it seems to have stalled at that. What do you think?
Well, you see, when somebody, and especially somebody who is in power, has sensed that constituting a body like IEBC is likely to send him home, of course, you would expect that they will come up with every type of strategy, if you want to call it strategy, but I doubt it's strategy, but creating a crisis so that they can continue staying in power. As my brother Kiru has said, Article 89, subsection 2 and 3 are very clear that IEBC should have by now, because it's a minimum of 8 years, a maximum of 8 years. Boundaries and names of constituencies and wards should have been reviewed. It is very clearly spelled out in the Constitution. So when you have people in power who do not have regard to the Constitution, then you know what their end game is. Create a complete crisis that cannot be resolved so that you can extend your stay in office through the back door. We've seen how this administration has been able to fast-track issues that they have an interest in. You saw the speediest manner in which they dealt with Rigiji. In fact, the speed was so fast. It was faster than supersonic. It was faster than lightning. The thing was dispensed off with in less, I don't know, was it in 3-4 days? And Rigiji was out of office from start to end. Was that so important that all the resources were deployed to make sure that that guy was put out of office? Was it that, if that was important, what about having IEBC that the Constitution demands that we must have with certain timelines? This is a weighty matter, extremely weighty. And I was very, very happy to hear from my friend, good friend, Justice Leanaola, stating that, this is a matter that should be dispensed with. But again, I'm throwing the ball back to the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court. They have enough evidence, sufficient evidence, one, to send the president home for flouting the Constitution. They can send this man home before Christmas. In fact, that can be his Christmas gift and a gift to Kenyans. They can also dissolve Parliament. They can send Parliament home using the Maraga advisory note that were given many years ago. You cannot have a country where certain people are not represented for more than 2 years. We cannot run this country as if you're running a kiosk, that you find that one man is trying to use every tactic available. You see, when you see these things being done, then you know that one, within the crisis, of course, there's room to jerry meandering, that, there'll be no time even to debate. In fact, these people don't even believe in public participation. Then, they'll throw the thing to the public, give them no time to debate, and so on. So let me put these people on notice. And the people who are squarely behind this thing. I've heard my friend Kindiki talking about, those people who are in court should remove it. Who has sent these people to court? Who is the sponsor? Who has sponsored these people? Who has sent them to court? Is it Pogisho? Is it Kirwa? Is it Philip Kisia? Let the dog of the owner ask those characters to remove these matters to court. Weighty matters. Weighty matters.
Weighty matters.
Weighty matters.
Indeed. Mheshimiwa Pogisho, why is it so difficult for both sides to even agree in this case? We now have a broad-based government. Did that murky the waters in terms of trying to arrive at a constitutional panel and then also getting the members? Why is it so difficult to have this IEBC over and done with in good time?
Well, first of all, we must agree that Kenyans don't get angry enough, even when they're suffering under situations. I cannot believe that there are wards which have no MCAs, and how are they functioning? That there are constituencies that don't have MPs, and the parliament itself is quiet. The executive, of course, definitely quiet, until the judiciary has now come out through this Justice Leanaola and decides to start this, to stir up the honestness. This is what we needed. The hashtag has worked, and everybody is now addressing that issue. It's very difficult, by the way, like my colleagues have been saying here, if there are intentions, to delay elections or delay the formation of the completion of the IEBC, it might be for a reason that's only advantageous to the executive, the current executive, that is. So I would like to say that we must congratulate Justice Leanaola for speaking out, and even for suggesting that we popularize this subject, which has been, so the whole weekend, the churches, every meeting was talking about the reconstitution of the IEBC. The opposition that should be pushing for this, and now led by Kalonzo Musyoka and his team, must also be seen to fire up the whole protest about it, so that people can actually see that they are moving to reconstitute this IEBC for their own good and for the good of the country. Since now the ODM party has moved almost entirely now towards government, it's now the Kalonzo Musyoka-led team, plus all people of goodwill, all Kenyans of goodwill, who must now remember that we have a chance to stand as the opposition and shout and make enough noise. And even through this forum, we are demanding the reconstitution of the IEBC soon as possible, because it is actually a danger to those of us who are preparing to run in the next elections. It's a danger if you don't know if the IEBC is going to be the same one like the one we had last time. Is it going to be composed of people who are just given orders and not be able to stand their own grounds? We need an independent electoral and boundaries commission. Number two, there are certain boundaries which are supposed to be delineated. And if they are not done now, they cannot be effective of use in the next election. And that's denying people a very serious, it'll be an oppression on certain people, definitely. This thing should have been done early, this year or even last year. Should have been done early, so that by the time they are gazetting new constituencies or new areas of election, they should be ready. So I think one thing we need to agree is that Kenyans don't get serious enough, they don't get angry enough on these matters like this, because I guess they are so oppressed by other matters. The ordinary person is so oppressed with just basic things that when you talk about IEBC, it seems so removed from them. But the educated class, the political class, should clamor for this, should really push for this, so that we have an IEBC ready for the next election.
Perhaps, Mheshimiwa Kipruto, could you paint a picture of what we would ideally be facing and getting into? I know that has been addressed, but what are some of the potential hurdles that we would jump into without, rather, due to the lack of the IEBC?
Well, one of the issues is what my brother Philip alluded a few moments ago, yes, that it might actually forestall the possibility of having the general election in 2027, August. Because with lack of IEBC, there is no election that can take place. And of course, you know, there is need for 6 months to prepare who the candidates are going to be in 2027, August. And those 6 months might be eaten up by lack of IEBC up to that particular time. And of course, politicians are very mischievous. They can easily say in their foregoing, and because of lack of time, they might even imagine that they can allow the election to take place beyond 2027. And that, of course, will be abrogating the current constitution and also creating a crisis that will be of magnitude that we do not know. The second issue is also confusion. Remember, almost every election, there are rules that are either passed by the House, gazetted by IEBC, to prepare the candidates. And you may run the risk of having so many candidates disqualified because of those rules may be put in place almost too late to the time a candidate can prepare himself. For example, in the last general election, 2022, we spent a lot of time trying to take through our would-be candidates on the regulations until, if one was to observe, the process became more technical than political, in the sense that we had to take through people. And you remember, 241, if I'm not wrong, candidates were found out of order in terms of when they resigned and whether they qualified to run for the offices they were running. I remember even in Muranga, our good friend Irungu Kangata, his deputy or his running mate was found not to be suitable because of certain considerations, and many other places. This therefore means we need to have this in place so that we prepare the candidates and people get a chance to prepare themselves to be ready for the election, and for that election to be credible, the process must be right. And the lack of IEBC, therefore, makes that process almost faulty from the beginning of time. That is the situation that we are likely to create, and that situation is likely to create a national crisis.
Okay.
A crisis that we should not look at it as if it is just political. Because the danger, George, in Kenya today is that people read politics in everything that you say. When you say something, they will ask, before even they analyze the issue, they will ask which side of the equation is so and so in, without looking at what does it mean to the country, what does it mean to the electoral process. And remember, the 2017 general election was annulled because the process was found to be faulty. And this therefore means we are creating a process that is going to be faulty, and perhaps some of the people who know they are going to be serious candidates know they are likely to lose, and therefore they want to make that process faulty so that they have credible grounds for their petition once they lose the next general election.
Yeah. To Kisia, I'll ask you the question before, so that we wind up also with this question of IEBC. What would the IEBC chairperson, whoever they would be, either male or female, and the commissioners, what kind of commissioners would you be looking at in the post-2024 type of IEBC, in terms of credibility, in terms of ethics, in terms of how to run a proper IEBC, perhaps to be able to live to the visions and the letter and spirit of the Constitution?
Well, George, I think you've already answered the question. You asked the question, you've answered it. You know, IEBC is such an important institution. But the credibility of that body has been put to test, has been put to question over the decades. I think the last time we had a credible IEBC, I cannot even remember. Okay? Because all the IEBC we've had, call it whatever, Electoral Commission of Kenya, whatever it was, we've had issues with them. But the one we had last is the worst that we've ever had since independence. The worst, starting from the chairman and the commissioners. It was actually the worst that we've ever seen in this country. You know, you need to have an institution run by people who are competent, qualified, with very high levels of integrity. Some people who can inspire confidence in the voters, in the people of Kenya. People who will ensure that we have free, fair, credible, and verifiable elections. We don't want to call Kriegler again here so that he can tell us that we don't even know who won the elections. We have Kenyans who are competent enough, who have high levels of integrity that can be considered for this job. Okay? But because of political expedience, you will find those in the political space putting fellows there who they can control, who they can manipulate. Okay? In 2007, we got into a very serious crisis. People lost lives. This country burnt down. It was not any better in 2013. It was even a disaster again in 2017.
Okay.
We're not sure of who won. Again, 2022, we had the same problem. But people need to understand, particularly those in power, that you cannot continue mismanaging an institution like this one.
Okay.
Because this time round, George, unlike previous years, we have a voter bloc that is restless, that is informed, that is fired, that will not take these things lying low. Let me tell you, the Gen Zs, the Alphas, and the Millennials will give us problems.
Okay.
So please, for heaven's sake, Mr. President, constitute this body and let us have men and women of integrity, and Kenya is not short of them.
All right. I know we need to go for a break. Mheshimiwa Pogisho, please recommend what the selection panel, so that we close this IEBC conversation, what the selection panel needs to have in mind in terms of, one, its balance, and two, is the way we even constitute this selection panel, because that has been one of the stalemates, is how we select this reconstitution panel the way it's supposed to be. Does it represent everyone? We have the onset of Gen Z. Do you think such are the modern issues that need to be put in mind as we reconstitute this panel?
George, when we set out to establish the process of selecting this panel, Kenya was not very alert to issues of gender equality, and they were not aware that there would be a generation called Gen Zs or a younger generation that's going to make a claim on the leadership of this country, and so the rules did not necessarily allow that to happen. They're not very, the Gen Zs, for example, and the women are not very highly placed in parties, political parties. And they are not also very active they're not been made active or given a chance. So you'll find that there might be an imbalance for lack of real representation by women, although political parties are aware of that now. But the younger generation is the one that's going to be left out, and we need to have a representation in that respect as well. So I'm thinking for there to be a complete balance, regional balance is always a problem anyway. A lot of regions will never be represented there for forever. But that's because of the way dynamics of populations work in this country.
Okay.
So yeah, but let me say this, the way it's going now, all they have to do now is to gazette the ones who have been proposed, and let them go on to now start recruiting the commissioners.
Okay.
It is at the level of the commissioners that we worry a lot about, because everybody in leadership, for example, now the current Kwanzaa government would probably want to have the things slightly leaning towards their own side, so that they have an advantage of it. Somebody who would then elect a chairman, whose chairman therefore will be favoring them. But that's not the way you can do that anymore. I mean, they did that. We could do that before. But today, the eyes of the public are so sharp and so open, so alert, that you can no longer just get them things done the way that other commission did. That commission that went was a crisis.
Okay.
So yeah. So I think there is no problem right now with the system. The nominees are representatives of categories given in the Constitution.
Okay.
But now the problem is how we go about electing the commissioners themselves, and then the chairperson.
Indeed, absolutely. We are taking a short break. Of course, State of the Nation continues. Charles Amanga watching from Kitale, Trans Nzoia County. Thank you so much for watching. We are taking a short break. But remember, among the headlines, of course, we will discuss the IMF deputy chief, the deputy boss, is in town. The deputy director, that is Nigel Clark, is in town. We're going to discuss what that means for the country and much more, making headlines across the country and beyond. Please do stay with us. We are back in a few minutes.
Vile unavyojua watoto wengi sana hawana namna. Mimi ningependelea watoto wasome.
I'm here to stress on education. At the same time, let us actually do any kind of sport that we are doing. Sport speaks the best language to everybody.
Tunataka tutafute talents, zile raw talents kutoka kule nyumbani mashinani mahali tuko leo.
Hizi mbio za Chepsaita, like all other sports, zinaleta watu pamoja.
We want to use this event to uplift the lives of the community.
Anafurahia hii mchezo sana. Hata sikaange naambianga watu tuende Chepsaita.
Wanafunzi wakimbie ili wakuze talanta ya mbio ama kuhimiza tena elimu.
This is the place to be. Hapa ndipo mahali wanastahili kuwa tarehe 7. Wale watoto walikimbia last year, wamekimbia mpaka wamefuka mipaka zetu za Kenya.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as
Welcome back. You're watching State of the Nation right here on TV47 Morning Cafe with me, George Maringa. My guest still here, the Honorable Samuel Pogisho, former Majority Leader and ICT Minister, Philip Kesia, Leadership and Governance Expert, as well as Kipruto Rapkira, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Gentlemen, the IMF is in town, and Kenya, according to the Daily Nation, reports that Kenya braces for IMF talks amid debt crisis, and this because according to Julie Kozak, the spokesperson of IMF, she said Deputy Managing Director Nigel Clark will travel to Nairobi, Kenya on December 9th and 10th as part of our ongoing engagements. And this will be a meeting that will be held between, of course, the IMF and the government. Mheshimiwa Kipruto, what do you make of this? There have been complaints, and you saw what was said about the Finance Bill 2024 and, you know, the quote-unquote mentioning of IMF in that finance bill. Do you think that as Kenya, we are ready to meet the obligations from our international lenders?
Well, George, as you know, all magicians and doctors, they frequently visit their patients, especially when they're in critical conditions. The visits are likely to be more frequent than is the case when a patient is in stable and reliable condition. This country, for many reasons, is in the state that we are worried as a people. We are worried about the fact that the cost of money in Kenya has gone so high, such that if you took a loan, possibly at 15%, which was the case a few years ago, that loan is likely to escalate up to 24%, a situation that no normal business can pay for itself. Coupled with that is domestic borrowing that this government has gotten involved in to push the cost of money so high by almost lending money to the banks, for the banks again to go buy the bills, treasury bills and bonds, for the government to have some money to spend. Coupled with that is that the regime has been making promises, and yet we know there are many projects that have stalled. And the projects that have been completed, they are pending bills in many counties, in the government itself, the central government itself, and many other institutions that are supposed to pay for those bills for money to be in circulation. This therefore creates a crisis of money flow within the economy. And that is what is making this economy so sluggish. And any lender, once they realize that the economy is getting sluggish, they have to check what are the critical issues. And of course, you know, there are some commitments the government had made in the past, that they were going to retire certain loans by a certain period. But up to now, some of them are likely to be ending in the next 4 months. And therefore, the IMF must be coming to check what kind of program do you have in retiring those loans and extending some of the borrowings for purposes of ensuring that the patient looks stable. Now, more important is that the debt, whether it's external or internal, is different to different institutions of government. Treasury will give you one figure. Parliament will give you another figure. State House will give you yet another figure, different from Parliament and from Treasury. And I remember the last time the President has told us he was appointing a committee to look into the debt crisis and, of course, identify what are the ceilings that are existing, whether we are shooting over beyond the roof or not. And yet, up to now, we've not gotten a feedback because some of the members who had been appointed declined the positions, and that report is yet to be made public. We would request this regime to spend more time telling us what the truth is for purposes of ensuring that everybody is kept in tandem with the realities of the day.
Kisia, I know you've been angling to speak, and with the IMF coming to visit Kenya and what you're seeing, and banks really, as reported by the Business Daily, not following the base lending rate, they're still, lending up with interest rates that are skyrocketing and hitting the roof. What do you make of all this economic and financial situation we are in as a country right now?
George, this World Bank are not very good people.
The IMF.
There is World Bank, IMF. They're the same. IMF. They are not good people.
Why is that?
How can they visit us when my good friend, His Excellency the President, through his state of address, just told the entire nation and the world that the country was in the right trajectory, that the economy was doing very well? They are coming to expose us. This is not good manners. Because, this thing, they are calling extended credit facility, and extended fund facility. These are facilities that are given to middle-income countries who are facing balance of payment issues. To put it plainly, that What IMF is telling us, that you are in a high dependency unit. We want just to come in, step in, infuse some blood in you so that you don't end up in ICU. So this facility they are talking about of about 3 billion is just to cushion this country. So in effect, what they are saying is that the country is broke. This country is broke. And if that intervention is not made, the economy is likely to collapse. Now, this makes a mockery of everything. We've had beautiful statements being read by His Excellency the President, the assurances that we've been given by the government that we are doing well. You've talked about banks, commercial banks. You know, commercial banks are in business. The other day we saw the government issuing directives, forcing banks to give out their money at certain rates. Banks now are loaning Mwananchi and business at 28%. Take it or leave it. Why are they doing that? Because government, which is not risk, it doesn't have risk, is borrowing from the same banks. My brother has talked about, Akiru has talked about this government borrowing so heavily locally. Forget about the infusion that we're expecting, injection we're expecting from international lenders. They are borrowing so heavily from our local banks, therefore starving money to small and medium-sized enterprises, starving money to small people like ourselves. We can't get it. And even when you can get it, the banks are put very heavy conditionalities that we cannot meet, leave alone the high interest rate. Basically, what this IMF is saying is that you are broke. You're on your deathbed, and we need to do something. But they are not good people, as I said. They should have come maybe a bit later, when we've forgotten about the statement, the state of address that was given by His Excellency the President.
Mheshimiwa Pogisho, among the issues that the IMF, of course, will be discussing, there was an approved facility arrangement under the extended credit facility that is talked about, of course, introduced in 2021. Of course, the Kenya Kwanza government was not in place, but there has been the appetite and the issues of how we manage and run our affairs as a country, looking at, you know, the taxes that are supposed to be introduced, where we are as a country. What do you think we should do, or the government should do, in terms of trying to balance its fiscal books and trying to balance development and, you know, also running affairs of a country, whereas you also want to look at, you know, money in the pocket for Mwananchi, whereas you've been told that the macros, such as inflation, has gone down?
George, there are certain things that cannot be verified. One of them is the statements that have been made, positive statements about our economy. The one thing is, look around and you can say the country is broke. You don't have to be told. It is in the faces of the people. It is in the services to the people and everything in there. The IMF have come. They can come by invitation. Maybe we've invited them to come, or in their routine. According to this one, they've come on a routine visiting to the patients, as somebody has started using the word.
Yes.
And we happen to know that one of the biggest problems in this country is that the government has already reached their limit in terms of collecting money from the Wananchi, revenue. They have used all tactics, all type of taxes, to try and squeeze everything from the citizenry. And now they find that even that is not sufficient to run the government and to serve the people. And so now they need that facility, which was started is it 3 years ago now? 4? Yes. I think 3 years ago. That to continue so that they may be able to then sustain a little bit longer. The problem is not how much we get sustained or infused with help. The problem is our appetite to eat everything that's on our plate, our appetite to live large, And everybody, you look at the people suffering today. The people in the countryside, the people in the cities are paupers. But the people in government are living large. You know, I saw the other day when they were going to watch, I think it was a road race in Eldoret, how many choppers landed in that place. And you know, this is just Eldoret here. You could even drive. But how many choppers landed there? That is how we live large. So somebody in this country is collecting all the money, and then they're encouraging each other to eat as much as they can, take away all the money, live large. I think that's where our problems. IMF is not concerned with that. IMF just says, okay, you're one of our clients. We've come to check how you're doing. Now we can continue with this credit facility, maybe negotiate new terms so that we can continue. They can continue to be a client in that respect. So let me just say this to IMF if I were to address them.
Yes.
Because they do not, they come here with terms, advice from maybe the Economic Council here, whatever the economic advisors here, but they do not really know what is ailing this country so that they can tailor a specific kind of support, a specific kind of loan, because they need to understand what really is going on. Otherwise, they may be supporting a government that's not spending the money well to serve the wananchi. So anyway, since they're on a routine arrangement, I really hope that Kenyans, and I know Kenyans are very sharp right now, I know they will write to IMF. I know they will tell IMF the truth. There will be a lot of communications. Kenyans nowadays don't just keep quiet. Then they will tell IMF the truth about what they are doing here. But I also want to ask the president and his team, can they stop showing us this opulence in the midst of poverty? I mean, this is really a big insult to the people of Kenya.
Indeed. Let's now look at matters members of parliament who remain silent, and let's take a look at that story, because the Star newspaper as well as People Daily has flashed out the names, and we'll be looking at what representation means. Let's take a look at that story. Indeed, about over 15 members of parliament have been flagged and written because Mzalendo Trust report shows that most of the inactive members are often absent when the National Assembly and Senate are considering or voting on crucial bills. And one of the responsibilities and duties of a legislator is to represent. Let's take a look.
Despite the primary role of an MP being to represent the opinions of their constituents, who are also voters, and to discuss matters of national and social importance, a report by Mzalendo Trust, which relies on official recording of the Hansard in every debate in the parliament, reveals that voices from 19 constituencies have not been presented in the parliament from August last year to December this year, despite those responsible being in the House.
Members on their feet, take the nearest seat.
Members of parliament who did not contribute to parliamentary debates include Oscar Sudi of Kapseret, Paul Aboro of Rongo, Irene Kasalu of Kitui, Charles Gumini of Hamisi, Joseph Tonoi of Kuresoi South, Martha Nyamabe of Kuria West, Samuel Kinudhi of Subukia, Patrick Barasa of Cherengani, Paul Chabor of Rongai, Dana Joseph Hamisi and Joseph Wainaina, who are nominated MPs, Stephen Karani of Laikipia West, Mohamed Sod of Mvita, Irene Njoki of Bahati, Alfred Mutai of Kuresoi North, Patrick Oseri of Borabu, Clement Sloya of Sabatia, Bare Abdi of Tabaj, and George Alado of Makadara are among the 19 MPs whose contributions were not captured by the parliamentary recording system.
Asante Mheshimiwa Speaker.
On the other house, Kwale Senator Issa Boijuma and two nominated Senator Shakila Mohammed and Betty Batuli were mentioned as the least vocal senators who missed hearings of at least 5 critical bills, including Social Health Insurance Bill and Affordable Housing Bill.
Order number 16.
Mzalendo is a Kenyan non-partisan parliamentary monitoring organization that promotes open, inclusive, and accountable parliaments across Kenya and Africa. Kinto Wafula, TV47.
This is an important bill.
Kisia, you were talking about how a certain bill, the impeachment of the former deputy president, was hurried and it was dispensed of within a couple of days. What does this mean, especially with all these members of parliament that we're seeing by this Mzalendo Trust that are not contributing in Parliament. Do we need to reduce the number?
You know, George, the role of a member of Parliament is known. We send an MP to Parliament to oversight the executive, to legislate, and to represent us, the people. And of course, to budget. But you see, again, the problem is not the person who is there. The problem is with the people who are electing people who are buffoons into Parliament. You leave out people who can do the job. You give the job to a person who has no capacity. So who do you blame? You can only blame yourself. The other people or the other organ or the institution that must be blamed are the political parties. Why take people, why give tickets to people who have no capacity to do the job and leave out people who can effectively represent the political party? So for me, those are the people we should be really blaming, throwing the blame at. The person casting the vote and the political party issuing the ticket, knowing very well that that person has no capacity. But again, Zalendo needs to be a bit fair. They are saying that these people don't participate in parliamentary activities. You saw all of them come into Parliament to vote for this finance bill that Kenya had rejected. You saw them coming to impeach Rigiji. So these are just people who are used as voting machines. They are people who have no brain of their own. They are people who are in the wrong place. But who should we blame? The blame lies squarely with parties and the people who send these people to Parliament, knowing very well that they cannot do the job. So 2027 is coming. We are hoping that President Ruto does not play some tricks to extend his term using the back door. We want these elections as scheduled. August 2027. Now that the voters are enlightened, more so with the millennials and Gen Zs, we want to send these people home so that we can have a properly constituted parliament.
Kirwa,
Yes.
Members of Parliament that have been named and splashed on the dailies as not performing. Does performance mean lack of contribution on the floor of the House mean that they're also not performing on the ground, as it were?
Well, it's very interesting. Some of the members of Parliament, it happens, of course, one is my own MP,
who is
Patrick Simiyu of Cherangani. You may find that some of these people are very active on the ground. Take, for example, Oscar Sudi. He's very vocal at home, and because, of course, at home you can talk in vernacular, you can talk in Kiswahili, you can mix Kiswahili and English. But to consistently make a contribution on the floor of the House is almost something that members of Parliament and those who want to go to Parliament, like my good friend Philip Kisia, should learn that if you don't take time to make a contribution within the first 3 months, you are likely to keep quiet for 5 years. And I know there are many members of Parliament who never uttered a word until they were either denominated or removed out of Parliament in the past. So that's the risk. But performance of a member of Parliament is just beyond just making a contribution on the floor of the House. There are various committees, and that is where now the bulk of work is done. But of course, you would expect if a member was in a committee and he made serious contribution and he has serious opinion to make, he should be able to follow up at the plenary in the floor of the House. The second issue is that some of the members of Parliament are voted because of other reasons. It may be that they flashed a lot of money and therefore the constituents might have thought these are people who are effective, only for them to realize that they are not. Some have voted because of the tribal arithmetic in certain constituencies. Some are voted in because of other considerations, such as a political party that is popular in an area. And once somebody gets nomination, then he has almost a chance of sailing through to the end, such that competition has been reduced to just mere positioning of the party leadership. And of course, to amplify what my colleague has said, political parties should be vigilant, because as you realize, the entire house has not been emasculated, and therefore the shouting, I'm sure, if you are to check during voting, most of these guys were shouting at the top of their voices, just because they had a chance to do that. And but when it comes to concrete contribution, which is expected of a member of parliament, they are likely not to make a lot of difference in terms of distinguishing themselves from just being ordinary member of parliament by making a contribution that stands out. Now, let the people decide, and in future, they should also be weighing somebody just beyond the nice speeches on the platform, caricature, and money. They should be looking at what does it mean for us to be represented by somebody who has no capacity to face his colleagues and make a contribution.
Mheshimiwa Pagisha, you were majority leader in the Senate. What is this that makes some leaders, some MPs to be specific, not contribute on the floor of the House?
Well, George, the last time you saw some of these people make a statement is when they were swearing in as members of parliament. That was probably the longest statement they made. And you could see from the day of swearing in that some of them would struggle with just the swearing in, the oath of office. And from that time on, those interested in representing their people will be visible right from there. Saying aye is not a speech, I mean, that's not a speech. So you don't count that. You must be able to do a bit of research and present something. And these days it's so easy because, I'll tell you why. Parliamentarians get help from the staff of parliament, and you can actually get a whole speech done for you because they actually support you with bills. So if you really wanted to contribute and you have no confidence, and I want to give these members here now, the privilege that is there in Parliament is that they can use the staff of Parliament to get their speech done for them, so that if they want to contribute, they can actually contribute. And so that next year, the scorecard for next year might show some of them beginning to talk. I just want to encourage them, because having that photograph there, that imprint of that, is going to be in the minds of children. Because even kids will be looking at you very badly. And so they need to remove that by next time being the ones, who will be talking. But I'll give them advice. So there is also help outside. If they need, I can consult with them and discuss with them how to prepare and how to deliver. Because that is one of the things that I tend to do. But anyway, the seriousness of the matter is that some of these people don't know why they went to Parliament. They were thrown into these situations by circumstances, and they did not prepare for it. Secondly, somebody like Oscar Sudi has said, he's busy making money. And that's his own pronouncement. And because Wananchi also have let us down. The person with the money has spoken. For them, that is what contribution is. So if a person comes with money and you go to Parliament to make statements, the person with the money will probably get elected in this country today because they dish out money. And so some people prepare that way for the next election, look for money. And Wananchi will never care about whether you speak in Parliament or not. This is us trying to show these things, but the Wananchi doesn't really care, because you're going to tell them a story in their language which may not resonate with what Parliament requires. And that's why they get away with this kind of things. Some of these people over the weekend will be speaking to natives about how good they are and how they are doing well. But really, three things that you're supposed to do in Parliament: legislate, represent, and oversight. So if you don't even do oversight, you don't even legislate, you're only probably, I don't even know what you're doing else. And you probably are not also representing. That means you have done zero work. And that's why Mzalendo can actually measure your performance like this. So let me just encourage them that there is help and that they can actually turn around this situation, which is not very good to appear on newspaper for this reason.
Yeah, Mheshimiwa Kipruto, the nation, the Standard is reporting that the Raila's path to Addis paved with intrigues, and we have seen what you've had to say about this AUC bid.
Yeah.
Do you think that these are hurdles that the former Prime Minister can overcome with ease, or what does he need, especially in terms of even votes and campaign method, to be able to win this seat?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of issues that we need to tackle. One is our own behavior as a country. You know, in the past, we have rubbed the shoulders of certain countries the wrong way, including our own neighbor in the Horn of Africa, Djibouti, where they needed a position in the UN sometimes back. And Kenya presented a situation that did not make it possible for them to win that particular position. The other issue is also to check about the French speaking countries, comprising about 29 of them. Although I think about 4 of them, because of coups and confusion at home, they may not be voting. Now that leaves 25, which means if Yusuf starts with 25 countries, is already head and shoulder above our own candidate. And that may be an obstacle that we need to check. The second issue is that there was the Sahrawi problem that we got involved by almost fighting Sahrawi and therefore making some countries feel very uncomfortable with us. And of course, the latest is now the abduction of Kizza Besigye of Uganda. It does not really behove us as a country to allow our security forces to become so porous to the extent that somebody is abducted from Nairobi all the way to Kampala, and we pretend that we do not know, or then Kampala says, oh, Kenya forces, they knew exactly what we were doing. Those are some of the marks that we lose as a country. Well, Raila has tried, and I just wish him well, but he has to overcome. And I've said before, it would be useful for them to negotiate with Djibouti so that the candidate of Djibouti gets another position within the AU system. It could be Commissioner for Peace and Security or whichever other position. And for even Raila to say he's going for only for 1 term, and the Djiboutian can also take over after that 1 term. Because when they talk of Eastern African region, Djibouti is part of Eastern Africa region. Yeah, but Kenyans conveniently, they want to make it look like it is East Africa. It is the eastern part of Africa, because the other day it was in South Africa. Now the fellow who is going out is from Central Africa. And therefore, it is the Eastern Africa region. And unless some of those issues are done, and the possibility, if Djibouti and Kenya, none of them gets 2/3 majority of those voting, they are likely to suspend for another 6 months. And this therefore means we are not likely to get that position. So if I was the person supporting Raila in Kenya and have the leverage of talking to Omar Gele of Djibouti and to prevail upon his Minister of Foreign Affairs to negotiate for another position, that would be easy to resolve that particular problem. Otherwise, I see Raila coming back in February, very annoyed with the president and very annoyed with the Kenya Kwanza team, and of course making another statement that may now put into disarray the plans of the current president come 2027.
Kisia, how important is it for the Honorable Raila Odinga to exit national politics in Kenya and go to AUC and perhaps provide room for other budding politicians and budding individuals in the political space in Kenya, as has been argued by some quarters?
George, you know, you talk about my party leader. Therefore, sometimes, you know, you must be cautious when you talk about your boss. As a Kenyan, and I know many Kenyans would want His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, to retire at a very high. And therefore, it is our prayer that he secures that seat as the chairman of African Union. Because of the work that he has done for the people of the Republic of Kenya, the struggles that he has gone through, the work that he did as the chairman of infrastructure for Africa when he was given a chance, I think he deserves it. We have said before, and just like my brother Kirwa said, there are serious issues that need to be addressed. Leave alone these other issues that we are creating for ourselves, you know, handing over Bizige to the Ugandans and what have you. But there is need to approach this thing, the AU seat, in a more strategic manner. When you see the team that has been given to work, and I'm happy that the team has been improved. There are people who have experience in foreign policies and foreign matters. The team has been improved. But when they started, you know, they started off on the wrong footing. I still believe that Raila has a chance if he does what my brother Kirwa said. Talk to the Djibouti fellows, ask them to give us a chance, and we shall support them when time comes. But even having said that, we are our own enemies. We seem to have an appetite of interfering on external matters of other countries. From where I sit, I know for sure that our relationship with a country like DRC could be having issues. You saw our aircraft being held in DRC. Yeah? You saw what happened. That's a sign that our relationship with DRC is not cordial. So if they can hold your aircraft, can you rely on them to give you the crucial vote that you need? Because the Francophone countries are half of the vote, and they are known traditionally to vote as a bloc because they receive instructions from France. They receive support. Their machines are oiled from France. So you may be talking to them, and then last minute they decide that this is what we've done traditionally, and therefore they go and vote as a bloc. Look at the north. Tinubu. Yes, he maybe has been approached, but we all know that him and the former president of Nigeria, who is championing Raila's campaign, are not in very good books. So what have we done to cure that problem? You have seen what has happened in Ghana. Which side were we supporting? Ado side or Mahama side? And we are just about to go and vote. So what again happens? Uhuru, I'm happy he came out and he said that he's supporting Raila. But you cannot ignore Uhuru even if you don't like him. He has strong and personal connections in Central Africa, Southern Africa. He has, very personal relationships with some of these presidents. So I would have wanted Uhuru, much as some people may not like him, but to take a very key and strategic role in advancing Raila's candidature for AU. But we wish him well. He's the best candidate that we have. We need a mature person who can transition African Union from where it is. Because we know that even this African Union is bleeding. If we don't get support from America and China, this thing is dead. So we actually need somebody who can come and say, wait a minute, we need to completely rejig how we do stuff at AU.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Pogisho, how important is it for Kenya to gain this seat and, the East African community as well?
Well, George, that Kenya needs this is definitely very important. Kenya has been trying. Kenya has not done very well in placing their own in positions, international organizations, and they've tried. Remember, we had candidates who tried and failed many times because we don't have the interest of our own people in this. But this one seems to have gained traction. This one of Amolo Odinga has gained traction because of the political relationship that I've entered into with the government. So that the government now has agreed to spend money and time and resources and personnel to support this campaign. The candidate is good. The candidate is able. The candidate has been tried. In my view, is the best candidate. But I mean, the dynamics in the AU are different. I want to believe that it's good for Kenya if Raila becomes the next chairman of AUC. It's very important strategically because, one, we gain trust in Africa, depending on how he performs, which I think I have no problem with that. But secondly, Kenya is actually a very strategic country in very many ways. And having one of us, especially one who has been our prime minister, has been experienced for many years in politics and so on, could actually help change in terms of democracy or democratic practices in these other countries in Africa, which basically is baying for a change, helping other countries to begin to see a democratic process of electing their people, so that elections can be something that bring out the right people. So even now, as we think, of course, now we know that Ghana has a new president who's an old president, and there are certain countries that are struggling, cannot get the right people into their system. So yes, it's very important. Kenya should be proud of that, and Kenya should support. Whether you are here or diaspora, I think we should really help. Say the good words out there where you can help, so that we have a chairman of the AUC from Kenya and Eastern Africa.
Okay, let's enter the home stretch and we get back into the country and look at the former deputy president. He has a new strategy that seems to be working in terms of how communicating. What are you making of how he has formed and morphed himself ever since the impeachment occurred?
Well, I think it's done very well. The only thing that I would request of him is to spend more time strategizing on how the situation will pan out in the next 1 or 2 years or so. Otherwise, it's done very well, and he has gotten the necessary gravitas around the mountain and the rest of the country. Perhaps the Riggy of today is not the same person who was appointed or nominated as a running mate 2.5 years ago. He has now gotten his own political feet, and is moving perhaps in the right direction. But as I said, you should spend more time, because at times, the more time you spend in planning for the next onslaught, the better it is for you, because politics is a matter of time, strategy, and money. And therefore, you need to calibrate yourself in terms of course, money. We do not have all the money that we require in any political situation, but we have time. But also we need to have the right strategy for purposes of moving forward. But my last word to all political players on either side of the equation is to build national trust, because we've destroyed this country to the extent that we don't trust each other. When you see the number of political parties people are forming, they are forming them because they don't trust that an umbrella organization can take us across the board, because of a lot of fear of the unknown from another community. Yeah.
Okay, so what options does the former Deputy President have, even as you compound with your closing remarks?
Thank you, George. I think Rigiji has taken a 360. He's completely transformed from who he was to who he is today. And what I like about him, I think he has sung some good music. He has at least accepted the fact that we cannot have a ping pong in 2027. You know, we've had ping pong from 1963. It moves from here, it comes here. It moves from a central province, it goes to Rift. He has accepted that even other Kenyans can provide leadership and the ping pong must end. Let me say this in ending, because I think this is our last show this year, to wish Kenyans, I know the Christmas may not be merry because we are all broke and we can only blame it on the Kenya Kwisha government because we are finished. But be as it may, let me wish them a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And in closing, people power can never be defeated. People are the power. You have seen the people in Syria ending the Assad's rule of 50 years, sending Bashar al-Assad home or somewhere in hiding. But he's gone. Dictator gone. You saw what happened in South Korea. Yoon Suk was almost being sent home. Even with the military force, the military could not withstand the people power. You saw and you've seen what has happened in Ghana. Nana Addo spreading lies. For all those years that he was occupying office, trying to push Baumia into office. I'm happy that this man was magnanimous enough to say that, you know what, I have lost and I'll try again in future. What am I saying? I'm saying that if it can happen in these countries and people can end a dictator's rule, why not in Kenya? There's hope. Happy, Merry Christmas, even if it's not going to be merry, but just enjoy whatever you have.
Asante. Mheshimiwa Pogisio.
I just want to also wish Kenyans a happy Christmas, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I want to also wish my colleagues here and you all the opportunity to enjoy the holidays. My closing remarks would be to congratulate the new leaders in FKF. They have a very, very heavy task to change our fortunes in football. But you know, just a bit of what has been said by my friends.
Sure.
The people, and the Kenyans at this particular time are not the same as they were 5 years ago or 2 years ago. We have a different kind of people. And I'm just saying this for leaders in political, the political leaders. Let us be open, let's be frank, let's deal with the situation of our people. Let's be sympathetic to their situation. And as I keep saying, you must not show us that you have stolen from us. You must let us have a look at the situation as it is. School fees, medical, everything that's going on, the people are suffering. How can they have a good Christmas? Anyway, we want to wish them a happy Christmas and want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to Kenyans on a weekly basis. Thank you.
And indeed, absolutely. And what a way to wind up the show this morning. I've been speaking to none other than the Honorable Samuel Pogisho, former Majority Leader of the Kenya Senate and former ICT Minister. Thank you for joining us. Mheshimiwa Philip Kesia, Leadership and Governance Expert. Thank you, sir, for making time. As well as Kipruto Arap Kiro, former Agriculture Cabinet Minister. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us and always speaking to us right here on The Morning Cafe. My name is George Maringa. Thank you once again for your feedback, for your company, and also for watching. We hope your morning has started off on a high, and we wish you the very best as you go about your day's activities. Up next is Stanley Nyaringita with Sports Chat. that, as well as matters, and later on a conversation also on Monday Bleeds, and later on a conversation on matters AI, embracing AI in business. I'll see you tonight at 9 p.m. We'll be having a conversation then with religious leaders. Please keep it TV47. Stay safe and be kind to one another.